Now we'll see how can we observe these bacteria under the microscope. So for that you must have to remember that all the bacteria are colorless and we cannot see them very clear under the microscope. So for observing them in a microscope, first we have to give them a color. And to give the color, the procedure to give a color to bacteria is simply known as the staining procedure. क्या बोलेंगे बेटा हम उसको? स्टेनिंग. फाइन. ओके. सो वन मोर थिंग बेटा, जैसे हम नॉर्मल कोई क्लोथ्स को कलर करने के लिए हम डाई बोलते हैं कि डाइंग करवाया. फाइन. यहाँ पे हम बोलेंगे स्टेनिंग. एंड यहाँ पे बेटा हम जो रिएजेंट यूज करते हैं फॉर द स्टेनिंग, दैट इज नोन एज द स्टेन. रिएजेंट यूज्ड ओवर हियर इज नोन एज द स्टेन. फाइन. फर्स्ट बेटा ग्राम नाम के साइंटिस्ट ने एक स्टेन बनाई थी, एक रिएजेंट, कलरिंग रिएजेंट डेवलप किया था और उससे सारे यू बैक्टीरिया को स्टेनिंग करने का ट्राई किया था. But beta amongst them only some had absorbed this gram stain and converted into the blue color, and they are known as the gram positive bacteria. While some eubacteria are there, they have not absorbed these gram stain and they do not change their color and they are known as the gram negative. Fine. Now बेटा ये जो स्टेन सबसे पहले डेवलप की थी, that was by the gram scientist and because of that is known as the gram stain. Fine. So firstly Gram had developed stain for staining of bacteria and that was known as a gram stain. That was known as gram stain. Fine. Now beta on the basis of the capacity of bacteria to absorb this gram stain, the bacteria are mainly classified into the two types. First one is the gram positive bacteria and another one is known as the gram negative bacteria. Fine. Now beta over here we can say that they can retain their color blue after the staining procedure. They can retain blue color after staining. And over here we can say that they cannot retain blue color after staining. They cannot retain blue color after staining. And because of that they are known as the gram negative bacteria. So beta this is nothing but about the staining procedure of the eubacteria, and now we'll move on the another topic, that is nothing but a nutrition in a eubacteria. Now beta on the basis of the nutrition, these eubacteria are of different type. So first we'll understand the meaning of a nutrition. So what do I mean by nutrition? So very simple meaning of a nutrition is taking of the food from outside and digesting that food and converting into the energy and use of that food for the or use of that energy for doing a physiological activities in any living organism means nutrition. इसको बेटा अगर बहुत सिंपली समझना है तो ये है कि कोई भी लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म का बाहर से फूड एब्जॉर्ब करने का यानी कि लेने का तरीका, फिर उसको कैसे डाइजेस्ट करते हैं, फिर उसमें से कैसे एनर्जी जनरेट होती है और वो एनर्जी को कैसे डेली फिजियोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटीज़ के लिए लिविंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स यूज़ करते हैं, ये सबको हम कंबाइनली इन अ वन वर्ड न्यूट्रिशन बोलेंगे. Fine enough beta. So in these bacteria, they are of the different types on the basis of their pattern of nutrition. First one are the Photoautotrophs and examples are the Chlorobium and Rhodospirillum. Now photo and autotrophs, ये दोनों वर्ड से बेटा आपको कुछ तो समझ में आ गया होगा. As you know very well, autotrophs का मीनिंग होता है organisms which can make their own food by the process of photosynthesis or any of the method are known as the autotrophs. Over here these are the photoautotrophs, means they make their own food with the help of the process photosynthesis with the help of the sunlight. Fine. So these photoautotrophs are nothing but the bacteria which can make their own food by the process of fertilization, by the process of photosynthesis. Fine enough beta. Now and these over here photosynthesis is an oxygenic type of photosynthesis, means they are not using oxygen over here. An oxygenic type of photosynthesis means they are not using and producing oxygen in this. Fine. Now beta next one are the chemo autotrophs. Now as from the autotrophs you can understand these are the organisms which can make their own food, but over here they are the chemo autotrophs, means they are producing their own food from the chemicals or by the chemical processes. Fine. So over here we can write the bacteria which can oxidize inorganic substances to form or to produce organic food are known as chemo autotrophs. Fine, but and the examples are the Nitrobacter, Nitrosomonas. They can oxidize the inorganic substance to prepare their organic food. Now the third type on the basis of nutrition is nothing but saprotrophs. Over here beta, from the word saprotrophs you can understand they are depending on the dead and decaying materials for their food. Fine. So over here this type of bacteria decomposes larger organic waste into the small organic molecule and then use them as a food. Fine. So these bacteria decompose larger organic molecules into smaller molecule and then use them as food. So this is nothing but known as the saprotrophs or saprophytic nutrition. Fine, and the example is nothing but that is the Pseudomonas. Now next one is the parasites. So this type of bacteria take the shelter from another organism and that absorb the nutrients from that particular organisms. नाउ बेटा ये पैरासाइट्स जो है वो जिस ऑर्गेनिज्म के साथ रहते हैं अटैच होके जिसका एज ए शेल्टर यूज करते हैं दैट इज नोन एज द होस्ट ऑर्गेनिज्म एंड वो होस्ट ऑर्गेनिज्म में से अपने फूड को डायरेक्टली एब्जॉर्ब कर लेता है. Fine enough. So they are known as the parasites. Sometimes beta some parasitic forms of the bacteria are also pathogenic for the host organism. Means बेटा एक तो वो होस्ट ऑर्गेनिज्म का एज अ शेल्टर यूज करते हैं, उसमें से अपना फूड भी लेते हैं और उसको डिजीज कॉज करते हैं. फाइन, ओके. सो पैरासाइट्स के लिए हम ये लिखेंगे बेटा, दीज बैक्टीरिया use another organism for shelter and absorb the food from them. And that particular organisms are known as the host, and that organisms on which these bacteria lives is known as a host. Now because sometimes these parasites are pathogenic for the host, and the simple meaning of the pathogenic is nothing but they can cause the disease. Fine. Sometimes these bacteria are pathogenic for host. Fine beta. Now there is one last type on the basis of nutrition. They are known as the symbionts. The mode of nutrition in some bacteria is a symbionts. So beta, for that these symbionts lives with the symbiotic relationship with any organism. So beta, for that you must know the meaning of the symbiotic relationship. Okay, so पहले बेटा हम वो देखेंगे what is the meaning of symbiotic relation. Okay, so very simple meaning of symbiotic relationship is nothing but this is the relationship in which two different organisms live with one another and they both are benefited by each other. That is known as the symbiotic relationship. Fine. In this relation, two different organisms live with one another and both are benefited. both are benefited mutually. फाइन बेटा, मीन्स दोनों को एक दूसरे से कुछ ना कुछ बेनिफिट होता है. सो ये जो ऑर्गेनिजम्स है, ये जो बैक्टीरिया है सिम्बायट्स, वो किसी और ऑर्गेनिज्म के साथ रहता है, उसमें से अपना फूड लेता है और सामने वो होस्ट ऑर्गेनिज्म को कुछ ना कुछ बेनिफिट करके देता है. फाइन. द एग्जाम्पल इज द राइजोबियम बैक्टीरिया. सो नाउ वी अंडरस्टूड दिस इन अ वेरी डिटेल. राइजोबियम बैक्टीरियाज कैन लिव इन अ रूट सिस्टम ऑफ द लेग्यूमिनोस प्लांट. पहले मैं वो लिख रही हूँ. दीज rhizobium bacteria lives in root of leguminous plants. Fine. By symbiotic relationship. So now we'll see how these both rhizobium bacteria and leguminous plants mutually benefited from one another. So over here बेटा, एक तो राइजोबियम बैक्टीरिया को ये लेग्यूमिनोस प्लांट के रूट में रहने के लिए शेल्टर मिल जाता है. Now second things, these rhizobium bacteria can absorb the food from the leguminous plant directly, तो उसका न्यूट्रिशन का फंक्शन भी हो गया. But what is the benefits of leguminous plant, वो भी तो होना चाहिए. So बेटा, as you know, in a atmosphere the 78% nitrogen content is there, but the limitation is that no one can directly absorb these atmospheric nitrogen. Only some exceptional organisms can absorb this atmospheric nitrogen. And beta, these rhizobium bacteria are one of them. They can absorb the food or they can absorb the nitrogen from the atmosphere. So वो बेटा नाइट्रोजन को जो एब्जॉर्ब करेगा एटमॉस्फेयर में से, वो डायरेक्टली लेग्यूमिनोस प्लांट को दे देंगे. फाइन इनफ. सो लेग्यूमिनोस प्लांट को ये बेनिफिट होता है कि राइजोबियम बैक्टीरिया में से नाइट्रोजन मिलता है और ये जो बैक्टीरिया है उसको प्लांट में रहने के लिए शेल्टर और फूड मिल जाता है. फाइन. सो बाय दिस वे दे बोथ आर म्यूचुअली बेनिफिटेड फ्रॉम वन अनदर. Fine. So this is whole about the nutrition of these bacteria. Now we'll move on another topic, that is the reproduction of a eubacteria.